Back third graders, another story in our hybrid text set. Remember, that's a combination between fiction and nonfiction compiled into one book. So, the story we're reading today is titled Seahorse, the Shyest Fish in the Sea. It's written by Chris Butterworth and it's illustrated by John Lawrence. Beautiful illustrations. And I love these very informative and pretty end papers. All of the different kinds of seahorses identified for us. All right, and let's get started. I'm curious, the title says the shyest fish in the sea. Shy means to feel nervous or uncomfortable around other people, and I'm curious, I wonder how a fish can be shy. As we read through, we want to try to identify which part of the story is the fiction and which part is the nonfiction. We'll be able to tell because of the font. So here we go. In the warm ocean, among the waving seagrass meadows, an eye like a small black bead is watching the fish dart by. Who does it belong to? Seahorse, one of the shyest fish in the sea. Seahorse has a head like a horse, a tail like a monkey, and a pouch like a kangaroo. This one is a barber's seahorse. He has tiny prickles down his back like a dragon. He may not look much like a fish, but that's what he is. Seahorse swims upright. He moves himself through the water with the little fins on his head and the large one on his back. I'm going back to this page, page 8, for the smaller font. This is where we're getting our facts, our nonfiction information. For a long time, no one was sure what kind of animal the seahorse was. Its scientific name is hippocampus, which means horse-like sea creature. He can only swim slowly. So if a hungry snapper cruises by looking for a snack, Seahorse does something very clever. He holds still and changes color. Now you see him until he's almost invisible, and now you don't. So you can see the transition of how he's changing color to hide from the hungry snapper fish. We're going to come back and read our nonfiction parts. Seahorses have hard, bony ridges all down their bodies. Not many other creatures eat seahorses, probably because they're just too difficult to swallow. The way seahorses change color and change the color of their skin to blend in with their surroundings is called camouflage. Every day at sunrise, the seahorse swims slowly off to meet his mate. They twist their tails together and twirl gently around, changing color until they match. Today, Seahorse's mate is full of ripe eggs. The two of them dance till sunset, and then she puts her eggs into his pouch. Let's go back and read the nonfiction parts. Seahorses are faithful to one mate and often pair up for life. Barber's seahorses mate every few weeks during the breeding season. Only the male seahorse has a pouch. Only the female seahorse can grow eggs. Seahorse sways about to get the eggs settled in, then seals his pouch shut tight. Safe inside, the dots in the eggs begin to grow into baby seahorses. They break out of their eggs and keep on growing, everyone with a head like a tiny horse and a tail like a little monkey. Go back and read the nonfiction. Seahorses are the only male fish to get pregnant like this, growing their young inside their own bodies. A few weeks later, the seahorse finds a quiet place to hide among the corals. It's time for the babies to be born. He works hard all day and through the night, bending, squeezing, and pushing, shooting hundreds of babies out of his pouch. Barber's seahorses can have 2 to 300 babies at once. They swirl around him in the water like smoke. One or two of the babies hang on to Daddy's nose for a while. It's the first and biggest thing they've seen. But when they let go, they are so tiny and light that the current soon floats them away. Current is the movement of the water. We'll come up here for our nonfiction. Each tiny new seahorse is a perfect copy of its parents, and it's ready for life on its own as soon as it's born. This seahorse is only as long as your eyelash, but she can find her own food right away. Her eyes move separately from each other. One can peer up while the other looks down, so she can spot food coming from any direction. With one quick slurp, she sucks her catch into the end of her snout and swallows it whole. Seahorses don't have teeth. In our nonfiction, seahorses live on plankton, tiny creatures that float along with the current. When she's big enough, Seahorse curls up her tail and sinks to the seabed. She is safer here. Her camouflage protects her. And if a storm scoops the sea into huge waves or passing boats send currents sweeping by, there are plenty of things to hang on to. We're going to go back and read all the nonfiction. To drop lower in the water, seahorses tuck in their necks and roll up their tails. To rise higher, they uncurl themselves until they are almost straight as pencils. Seahorses cannot live where the currents are very strong. They would be swept away. Seahorses have prehensile tails, which means they can grasp things tightly with them. When she is even bigger, Seahorse picks one patch of reef as her home. She wraps her tail around a coral branch. This is her holdfast. Wherever she goes, she'll keep coming back to this holdfast. There she is right there. Male barbers, seahorses, range only a few square oops, range over only a few square miles. The females range twice as big or even bigger. So the women travel further, the females. In a few months, this little seahorse will be ready to mate. She'll spend the rest of her life on the reef, watching for food, meeting her mate, and trying to stay almost invisible. Who is that peering from the coral? Shh, she's a seahorse. We're going to go back and read the nonfiction. Barbers' seahorses can mate by the age of 6 months and are fully grown at about a year. This book comes along with an index, and remember, an index tells us where we can find information about specific things. So if you look up these pages, you find all things about seahorses. If we wanted to know about the tail, we could find information on page 8, 12, 15, pages 22 through 24. Here's a little extra blurb about seahorses. The seahorses in this book are Barber's seahorses. You can see other kinds of seahorses on the pages at either end of the book. We call those end pages. Marine zoologists think there are 35 seahorse species, but they still may find others. Many kinds of seahorses need protecting. Millions die each year when they are taken from the seas to be sold and when humans disturb the quiet waters where they live. So hearing that, we can come up with a message of what the story is mostly about, what the big takeaway would be, how we can apply it to our lives and our world. And there may be some messages, perhaps animals in the natural world behave in amazing ways. Others may say a message could be all animal species are unique and fascinating. Someone else may say the message would be some animals and their habitats need protecting. All right, thanks for listening.